Evening everybody. Well, it's evening over here anyway. I hope you're all well. What I've got for you tonight is a super simple tie. It's called the Shipmans buzzer. And what I'll do is I'll go through the materials and then I'll give you a bit of history on the fly, only a tiny bit to be honest. In the vise, Togan's wet fly hook, size 12. 12s and 14s are best for this. They are prolific in that size as far as I'm concerned. This has a tail and breathers, and that is white polypropylene yarn. And then the rib on the fly is, wrong way, there we go, Togan's Kironi skin in blue steel. And finally the body on the fly, Vicuna dubbing, and I'm going Scarlet Hare's Ear Sub. Love this colour. Now, for me, Shipman's buzzers are best in claret, olive and black, where I fish. And as you can see, I've just cast on thread. This is wine. I've taken it down to a little bit shorter where the bend starts, I guess just in line with the point of the hook, and then taking it back up to the eye again. And what we're now going to do is take a length of that poly yarn, and we are going to tie that in the full length of the body. So just catch it in on top. We have a fair bit sticking out the front because we're going to trim it to size later on. Make sure it sits right on top of the hook, and then as you're taking this poly yarn down, if you lift it up, the thread wraps will slide nicely down that poly yarn. You don't necessarily need touching turns, but what this will do is guarantee that that poly yarn stays right on top of that hook to somewhere in line with the barb of the hook, as you can see there. And then what I'm going to do is do a couple of wraps underneath. Three is a good number. We'll do 3 wraps underneath just because it just kicks it up slightly. I'm going to take the thread right the way up to the start again, and we're going to tie in that Kironi skin for the rib. And I'm using this because I've had a lot of success with pearl mylar type ribs, but then when I started using this, the blue added a little something that the fish seem to like, and it gives sort of a hint of pearl with a hint of blue, and the way it flashes in the sun is really good. Now, the Shipman's buzzer was invented by Dave Shipman. It works well when trout are feeding on emerging chironomids on still waters over here in the UK, definitely. I'm sure all over the world, to be honest. A chironomid is a chironomid, a midge is a midge. As I've said, scarlet and black are my 2 go-to colours. And it's best fished in the surface film, and that's why I've just kicked that tail up a bit, and I'm going to kick these breathers up a bit when I'm done as well. So we've got the rib tied in. We're now going to tie in the hare's ear sub body. So just tease out some of that dubbing, and you want to tie the body slim. For my Shipmans, I've never had as much success on bulky flies as I have on the really skinny ones for these Shipmans, because buzzers tend to be quite skinny, and sort of the emerging buzzer that this is meant to imitate, I think, should also be skinny. So hold the materials just so you're not going to wrap them around the hook with thread tension, and then nice touching turns with the dubbing all the way up the hook shank. Tighten as you go if you want, just thin out that body a bit. There we go, as I said, a nice thin body. I might need a little bit more here. Just going to put a pinch more on. Now this is best fished as a dry fly. In the surface film. So the body sits in the film, the breathers sit out. So you can gink up the breathers and the tail, and then let the body sit in the film. I'm just going to lift that up and do one underneath, and as you can see, that kicks that up nicely. I'm just going to pull that out of the way, get rid of your excess dubbing, because everybody always has excess dubbing. Rub that up. Done. As I say, this is best fished in the surface film. It can be fished dry. You can gink the entire fly, any sort of floatant, and do it that way. It also works really well subsurface once it's wet and it sinks. Works very well on. I've had great success fishing it as it's sunk through the water column. We've done that rib, so we're just going to tie that off. Be a bit careful because the corony skin is flat and it's slippery, so you just want to make sure you've secured it really well. There you go. Snip off your excess. If you want to, you can put the tiniest wisp of dubbing just to cover over where you've tied off that rib. It can only help. In kicking up the breathers a bit more as well. There we go. Perfect. Spot on. Right, and now we're going to whip finish. One. I always like to do two. I don't use varnish. Never really needed it. Two. Just make sure that knot's seated really well. Snap the thread if that's how you want to tie it off. Now we'll snip off the excess thread that hasn't been snapped, and it's just now a matter of cutting these to size. And you want them, I don't know, about that long. There's no exact science to this. And then you hold that, cut that to size as well. And that is it. The Shipmans buzzer. Absolutely lethal on still waters when trout are feeding on emerging chiromids. Give it a go. Let me know how you get on. You can find me via tokens. You can find me on Instagram. I look forward to hearing about your fishy tales. See you next time.